From the runway in Paris to the Salish Sea, we will explore identity right here, right now, on Access TV. I'm Molly Caron.
I'm Narges, and I'm super excited to be back and interviewing Michael Alexander on City Conversations, a series of dialogue here in downtown Vancouver at SFU campus.
We'll hear from Sho Sho Esquiro, who is the designer, recently returned from Paris, with her work that she calls Worth Our Weight in Gold. She's using natural fibers, hairs, hides, and precious metals, and we're bringing them to you here on the runway floor of Access TV.
Bo Dick is back with us, playing some music and telling us about his upcoming show at Bill Reed Gallery.
And Dr. Henry Yu will be in to speak with Sid Chow Tan about Chinatown, its past stories, its present purpose, and where do all the elders go, and how can we honor the origins of Chinatown.
And of course, Hot Topics with Narges and Wendy, and we have a special guest this week, Kombi, representing the African community here in Vancouver.
And we'll start you off with Silvaine Zimmerman from Bowen Island in conversation with Murray Skeels, the recently elected mayor of Bowen Island, BC's largest island municipality with a very high voter turnout. Let's find out what makes them tick over there.
Hi, I'm Silvaine Zimmerman with Access Community Television, and I'm here with Murray Skeels, who is the recently elected mayor of Bowen Island. Hi Murray, how would you like to be referred to? Your worship, your honor?
Oh, okay. You can call me Murray.
Oh, thank you very much, Murray. So you were elected with a slim majority. There seems to be a sort of a three-way split on Bowen Island in this last election. And I'd like to know what you think makes Bowen so motivated, passionate, and special. Why is there this heavy engagement in politics, and why was there such a close race?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because we have like 65% of people show up for municipal elections, where 35 or 40 show up most places. People take it very seriously. And I think part of it is just the fact that you're an island. Right? I mean, we're very, very close to each other. And that last ferry leaves at night. The feeling of community is extremely strong. And unique sorts of people are attracted to islands. But that's all they have in common. It's the fact that they're attracted to islands, you know. So what we have is retired people. We have from the United States, from Europe, and so on. And so you have your sort of retired businessman, figured out the perfect place to retire off to the Gulf Island. Then we have the retired academia people who are there. And these are, you know, really bright, passionate people as well. And we also have those of us that moved there, like we moved there at the end of the 1970s. So at that time there was 800 people, and we were like a tribe, you know, and a lot of people arrived during the 80s, but we were really looking for this lifestyle, living in the forest, very environmentally aware, all of that sort of stuff. And so we're a very strong cohort on the island as well. Right? And then we have our children that grew up there. And they are like all small town kids, right? This is where they grew up, right? So they've got all the challenges of owning a home, and how do you pay to commute to Vancouver if you can't find a job on the island? And overlaid on this crew, right, we have all of these young urban professionals. We have probably more PhDs per capita than anywhere. Our post-secondary graduates, I think as a census statistic, we actually do. And so this is the couple, they're both professionals, again, very bright people, and they've decided that Bowen Island is the place to have your two children and to raise them. And it's a really nice place, except for just a couple of things that they'd like to see done better.
Yes.
So you take all of these people, put them together onto this small island, and then you say, now we're going to have an election. Who would you like to see?
And what motivated you to get involved in this mix?
Oh, I know. It's a good question. A lot of people ask me that one. You know, the fact that I have lived there for so long. And originally I was a commuter. I commuted to downtown Vancouver, and I worked in project management and the usual corporate type of stuff. But in 1992, I was able to move my business to Bowen. So I've been an active small town businessman since then. And at one point, we put out a little newspaper, or a merchant flyer, more to the point. And so I wrote for it. So I did these extremely opinionated pieces. Really,
but well-researched.
Well-researched, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know an awful lot about what makes the island work. And I was going to retire. I almost retired. And then I thought, well, we'll just take a shot at this and see if it works out. So now I've got this 4-year contract with the municipality to see. Anyway.
Well, good luck with that. So what are your priorities for the next 4 years, Murray?
Well, it's to take down the level of rhetoric in the politics, because, I mean, you're talking really nice people here. I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful place to live, until you get onto politics, and then people go absolutely nuts on you, right? And it's because you have this ideal over here, and you have an ideal over there, right? And what I want to do is let's just agree on this thing down here. We'll find our divergent points later. We'll work for consensus. We'll try to get up to wherever it is we should end as a group, somewhere in between.
So find what people have in common first,
Yeah,
and work out the little details where they might differ later.
Well, it's not the little details.
It's the big details.
The rub is that we do all of this long-term planning. We've got more master plans you could shake a stick at. And depending on who wrote the plan, they're quite different as to where we're supposed to end up.
Yeah.
But these things, the big things, will actually look after themselves if we look after the little things. So my hope is that we will stick to small things, stick to our knitting, not go crazy, and lower the temperature of our politics.
Good luck with that.
Well, yeah.
Well, we had a big debate on Bowen Island in the last election, which I ran in and lost, which had to do with whether or not we should invite the rest of Canada to come to Bowen Island in the form of a federal park. It was a close election as well. It was almost like a 50-50 split. Do you foresee anything like that in your term, or something similar, or do you think we've said goodbye to big-time environmental protection issues or tourism issues? Like, what kinds of issues do you think are going to be big?
You know, I foresee at some point probably a community hall. If we don't come up with something on a community hall in this term, then we'll all get lynched at dawn at some point.
So the arts are big.
Well, is it arts? Is it recreation? Is it a place to have a wedding for your kids? I mean, there's different people see a community hall in many different ways, right?
Details.
And yeah, this is part of the thing. But if we can't come up with some really creative way to finance this, we have to go to referendum. And a referendum for money on a community hall, that could be polarizing. That could be a big debate. But other than that, I don't see anything. I think we can stick to small enough stuff. Things like a fire hall. We need a new fire hall. It'll have to go to referendum. But I don't see it as being a big issue that's going to invite a lot of passion.
We got our library through referendum, so maybe we'll get our community hall that way.
Well, yes. You see, you have that optimistic perspective. This is good.
Well, I would like to share my optimism with you, and thank you very much for coming in today, Murray. And we'll keep talking on island or off.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This was Murray Skeels, Mayor of Bowen Island, and I'm Silvaine Zimmerman with Access TV.
Oh, Bowen Island, a mainly forested paradise in the Salish Sea, just a 20-minute ferry ride away. We'll hear more from Silvaine throughout the year. She'll bring us more perspective of the Bowen Islanders.
Hello and welcome to Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community. My name is Sid Tan and I'm here with Dr. Henry Yu, co-chair of the Legacy Initiatives Advisory Council, which was formed after the British Columbia government apologized for historic wrongs to Chinese British Columbians. Welcome to the show, Henry.
Thank you, Sid.
It's so great to have you here, and I know that you've been working and in the front lines of Chinatown and doing the history and Chinese migration. I'm just got to ask you, what is so important about this, and why are you so interested in it?
Well, I have both a personal and a scholarly connection to Chinatown. When I was born in Vancouver when I was a young child, 5 or 6 years old. We used to live in near Britannia, and my grandfather, who had been in Canada since he was a teenager, he had come in 1923, paid the head tax. He had worked all his life in British Columbia, and he was by then, you know, an older retiree, and he would walk me down to Chinatown, you know, all the time to basically to show me off to his friends, you know, these other men who had basically lived and worked their whole lives in Chinatown. And so to me, it's a special place. He would take me to these old cafes like the BC Royal, and they would be so happy, these old men, to see me, because I think for many of them, because of the immigration exclusion, because of the head tax, they weren't able to bring families, they weren't able to kind of have grandkids. And so for my grandfather to be able to bring me and show them what it was to have a young child around, it was really special. And I've never forgotten it, and I've never forgotten those men. And that led me in many ways to be the scholar and the researcher that I am. I'm a historian, and I think one of the things that really interested me as I studied the sort of global migration patterns, Trans-Pacific Asian migration, not just Chinese, but Japanese and others who came to North America, I think really what's been motivating me all these years personally has been to understand the stories of people like my grandfather, because he never told me, he was a very quiet man by the end of his life, he never told me the stories of what his life was like. And so for me to discover the range of what life was like for men like my grandfather, it's been a personal as well as a scholarly journey.
Well, you've been a breath of fresh air for telling these stories. I mean, you've been doing terrific work up there with the Instructs program. Getting back to your position as co-chair, one of the legacy initiatives is to look at the feasibility of Chinese Canadian seniors centers and care homes in historic Chinatowns. I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little more of why this should happen.
Well, the apology in May of 2014 was made, and I was one of many people who really thought that it's important to have something substantive come out of the apology. And so one of the substantive projects is to look at what the future of Chinatown is. In the 70s, when my grandfather was taking me, Chinatown was actually quite vibrant. There was lots of new migrants, and it had a monopoly, you could say, on Chinese goods. So if you wanted to shop for food, you needed to go there on weekends, and so it was really a place that changed over the years as more and more Chinese restaurants went to other parts of the city, as grocery stores and supermarket chains carried Chinese food. You don't need to go down to Chinatown anymore. And so there was a long 10-year, you could say, process by which a lot of the stakeholders in Chinatown, the clan associations, the family societies, the local Chinatown orgs, as well as others who really cared about Chinatown, came together and in a consensual way, in a collective process, decided what's the vision for the future of Chinatown. In 2011, that Chinatown vision was adopted by the city of Vancouver, and one of the key priorities was seniors housing. And the reason why is because, you know, one of the places there, the Success, you know, Simon K. Wiley care home, there's a long wait list, years long. My own grandmother, when she was at the end of her days, she had had a stroke and she needed long-term care. And her home was, you know, on the other side of the city. None of the nurses spoke Cantonese. She was eating non-Chinese food for the first time in her life, and it wasn't a pleasant way to spend the last days of her life. And to me, that's one of the reasons why to have ethnic-specific care in Chinatown is a way both to honor the legacy of Chinese Canadians who have worked and lived in BC for their lives.
But the vision plan from the city calls for 70 market housing units for every social housing unit. And social housing units are not necessarily seniors units. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that's why the Legacy Advisory Initiatives Council is putting funding towards a feasibility study. And the reason why is it's not just about trying to figure out the economics of it. We also have to think of the policy tools that are necessary. Right now, it's not the fault of the city planners, it's not the fault of developers that these seniors housing units aren't going to get built. We need tools, we need formulas that sort of say, okay, if we're going to be building, market housing, how is that going to help us achieve the other public goods that we need? Things like income-assisted seniors housing, things like social housing. And that's why, to me, having the government, both the provincial government as well as the City of Vancouver, take a long, hard look at this, identify how they're going to implement what has already been identified by a decades-long collective process of what are our needs and priorities. And so this is really following through on promises already made. I was part of that. I wasn't the only one. There's lots of people who came together. We have to honor that.
Chinese Canadian seniors housing. Who could be against that? This is what gets me, and yet we're having a lot of difficulty getting it done. What do you think is needed to give it a push? What catalyst? What would have to happen?
I think what needs to make it happen is for people to come together and make the argument in a way that everybody does agree. And I agree with you. Who could be against Chinese seniors? And no one is, but we need to step forward and actually create the tools. And it's the toolkit that to me has been missing. It's the frustrating part because, if you say, yes, we all care about seniors, but you don't do anything to actually create housing for them or income-assisted housing for those who are in need financially, but also just long-term care housing. And this, you could say, goes for seniors across the city. It's not just Chinese Canadian seniors, but we did, the Chinatown Foundation, a nonprofit who really is concerned about the future of Chinatown, we commissioned a study at UBC by one of my colleagues who's a researcher about what are the ethnic-specific needs for income-assisted seniors housing across the city. And the researchers looked across not just Chinese Canadian communities, but Italian, Hungarian, all the different ethnic groups. And the need for Chinese Canadian seniors, especially in terms of income-assisted care, was much higher than the rest. 3,300 spaces needed over the next decade. So we need to really address this issue.
We're running out of time now, Henry. Thank you for being with us and clarifying some of these issues for us. For those of you that would like more information on this, a PhD candidate, city planner, has created a blog. The blog is melissafong.wordpress.com, which talks a lot about the issues, particularly with a site-specific called Kiefer Triangle, where we're looking to try and get more units of Chinese Canadian seniors housing. Thank you for watching Access Community Television, shamelessly promoting our friends and community. I've been here with Henry Yu. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sid.
Until we meet again, straight shooting and tight edits. I'm Sid 10.
Today, I'm speaking with Mr. Michael Alexander, Director of City Conversations, a lunchtime public conversation at SFU Vancouver campus, now in its 4th year. Mr. Alexander has over 25 years of extensive experience as a photojournalist for Time Life in San Francisco. He's also worked with major U.S. publications such as New York Times, Washington Post, Vogue, to name a few. Michael's worked on creating National Park on the Golden Gate. He was also appointed to National Parks Advisory Commission by the U.S. Secretary of Interior. On that note, I would like to welcome Michael to Access TV.
Thank you, Narges. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure meeting you. Michael, what makes Vancouver different and thriving from an urban designer's point of view?
Well, we came from San Francisco, which is also very different and very thriving. What Vancouver did was, beginning in the 1980s, it began a transformation to make its downtown make over its downtown from a 9 to 5 downtown, as most downtowns in North America were at the time, and turned it into a 24-hour place. And how did that happen? They did it by inviting people to live downtown, something that other cities said, no, that'll never happen. People want to live in the suburbs, but they come to work downtown. Vancouver proved them wrong. Vancouver proved that people would live downtown, that they find it exciting, that they find it energizing. You have to design the city correctly in order to encourage that, but it changes the feeling of the city, and it changes the way people experience the city.
So with these changes, how do you think the settled generation of Vancouver feels?
Well, I don't think that there's a particular, if you meet people who have lived here for a long time, I don't think there's any one characteristic that defines them. A lot of people are uncomfortable with change, or uncomfortable with the fear of change. Very often, once the change happens, they discover that they actually like it. But there's always a nervousness about change, and some older residents certainly feel that. They don't feel it when they have the opportunity to make $1 million selling their home to someone else, but they certainly do feel it when they feel that a change may affect them negatively. And you get different, you will get different opinions. Unfortunately, and you have to be careful, the people who are the loudest aren't necessarily the ones who represent the majority.
Correct, yeah. Which brings me to City Conversations. It's an open dialogue that happens twice a month at SFU in downtown Vancouver campus.
Yes.
What's been your inspiration behind City Conversations?
Well, it comes from having been an American, now a Canadian, and moving to a new country where the language is the same, but the culture is different. And in San Francisco, one reason we left San Francisco was that people like to argue and fight there. And getting public projects done is, even for small projects, can be a 20-year process where people delay and argue and delay and demand more hearings and more studies. I got tired of it. And when we moved to Vancouver, one of the reasons we came here was that the discourse, that the public discourse that people have is smoother. People have a conversation, different views get put in, but then a decision gets made and change takes place, and it happens much more quickly. And I think that was very attractive. I would tell people in San Francisco who asked, why did you move? I said, I can do 2 projects in what time I have in my life in San Francisco, or I can do 20 in Vancouver. I choose the 20.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So what's the format of these talks?
Well, one observation that I made was that, well, San Franciscans like to argue. Sometimes Canadians are a little too quiet. They're a little concerned about saying what they want, saying what they feel, because they're concerned that they may offend others. Mm-hmm. That inhibits good public discourse. And so, and I heard this complaint over and over again from people. So 4 years ago, I said, wait a minute. I've got a format in San Francisco that I can borrow, so I'm going to steal that and bring it up here. and modify it to adapt it to Canadian culture. So what we did was start this conversation series. We pick one topic each for each conversation. We invite people to come in. Anybody from the public can come in, bring your lunch, sit down, relax. We'll have a couple of presenters speak for no more than 7 minutes to frame the conversation. But then the conversation turns to everybody in the room. They are participants. They're not an audience.
Correct.
And so they participate in the conversation, so we get multiple points of view, multiple ideas. Sometimes the ideas from the participants are much better than the ones from the presenters. And it enlivens the conversation, but it also encourages people to speak their mind. And we think that that's a benefit.
That's great. So can you quickly tell us about the subjects coming up in the new year?
Well, for our next event, the topic is taxi disruption, and it's about the changes that are happening in the taxi industry all over the world, being resisted here in Vancouver as it is in many other cities. Uber is the big name here and the big bogey person for this, but there are other programs that are working, that seem to be working much better, and it's changing the way people think about public transit. But we do all sorts of topics, and these are the topics, not the specifics. We do the arts, we do transportation. We'll be doing a lot of transportation this year because of the transportation referendum that's coming up in March. Urban design. We had former BC Premier Mike Harcourt on the BC economy. We do culture, the downtown east side, innovation, cycling, the Georgia and Dunsmuir viaducts, history, the agricultural land reserve. So we do lots of topics, and we invite people who are interested in a particular topic. Come on in, join us.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on Access TV, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much, Narges.
Well, thank you, Narges. That's excellent. We can join the conversation the first and third Thursday of the month at the SFU Harbor Center. I think the first topic will be transportation, and I'm up for that.
Ready?
Next, we're going to hear from Sho Sho Esquiro. She's just come back from representing North America's first people on the runway at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Her show was called Worth Our Weight in Gold, and weight spelled W-A-I-T, alluding to the fact that we're still waiting for justice for the missing and murdered Aboriginal women here in Canada. And she has taken all natural fibers, fur and hide and precious metals, and brought them together to make powerful clothing for men and women. She actually did the clothing for a tribe called Red when they went to accept their Juno. If you missed her at the Bill Reid Gallery this December, we are going to bring for you today the clothes that were shown to the runway here at Access TV. And you'll see fabulous models showing her work right now.
Welcome to Access TV. Today we have Sho Sho Esquiro, and she is here as a Casca Dene Cree lady who has showcased her work from everywhere from New York Fashion Week, Portland, Oregon, and even Paris at the Eiffel Tower. She ended her year right here in Vancouver at the Bill Reid Gallery, where she honored the missing and murdered women. She's an award-winning artist who uses everything from beaver tail, carp, to even seal skin and rooster feathers. She's here with us today. Thank you for joining us on Access TV.
Thank you for having me.
Well, now that you're back, how does it feel to be inspired by the year?
It was a very inspiring year, and I worked really hard to get to Paris. I had just a couple months to prepare for that, so it was a lot of 18-hour days, 3-4 hours sleep a night. So I'm happy to be starting the new year and still adding to that collection as well.
What kind of materials did you use in your collection while showcasing your work in Paris?
I used all natural fibers, a lot of silks, a lot of wool, linen. I used 24 karat gold, seal skin, ermine, abalone, beaver tail. So I used a lot of elements that we use traditionally, but I used them in a contemporary way.
And what kind of work do you have planned for this year, 2015? Where do you go from here? I mean, you've been to Paris and New York, but where else is there?
Lots of exciting things. I'll actually be taking my work to Indigenous Fashion Week in New Zealand in July, as well as a huge exhibit is opening up called Native Fashion Now, and that's at the Peabody Essex Museum in Boston. And that exhibit will be opening up late this year. So that's also really excited to be part of. It's one of the biggest Native clothing exhibits that's ever been in any museums to date. So it's exciting to be part of that one.
And I've noticed in some of your showcases that you've actually used Pendleton blankets in your designs too.
Yeah, I kind of started out using Pendleton, incorporating Pendleton. I still do. I actually will probably always incorporate Pendleton in some sort of way. It wasn't in my last collection, but it's definitely a staple in my design aesthetic.
And you've also shown your work at the Talking Stick Festival at a local and community level. How was that received by the people?
That was great. That was actually back for the Olympics, and that was one of my very first fashion shows. So since then, I just kind of carried on, and so that was really meaningful to be a part of that show during the Olympics here.
And then you ended your tour in 2014 here at the Bill Reid Gallery in honor of the missing and murdered women. Why do you think it's important to highlight and to create some kind of meaningful attention to that issue? It's something that I hold very dear to me, and I like to bring awareness to it, and I think that it needs to be talked about and brought to light. There's a lot of people that don't have any idea. I just did a show in Los Angeles, and I had a lot of people that were just flabbergasted about those numbers, and also that nothing is being done. So having the opportunity to do the show in Paris, it meant more meaning for me to bring purpose and awareness over to France and get the message out. I did interviews with people in Vietnam and Dubai, so it's definitely, getting publicity on such an important subject. Do you think that it will make a difference? And what kind of a difference?
I would hope that it would. Something that happened just before my actual show on the Eiffel Tower, just a couple hours before, I got an email from a woman whose niece is actually one of the murdered and missing women. And she had read an article about that was my purpose to bring over there. And she was crying, and she thanked me for bringing awareness and honoring her niece. And so that alone is meaningful to me and important, and made it that much more of a purpose when I actually did the show a couple hours later on the Eiffel Tower.
And will it influence your designs at all this year?
I'm still going to be adding a couple of pieces to that collection. I'm going to be showing it at the Heard Museum in Arizona, in Phoenix. So there's going to be a couple of more pieces in that, and then I'll move on to my next collection, my 2016 collection, and that will have an entirely different inspiration.
Well, tell us all about it. Give us.
I don't want to give you too much. It's definitely, I'm taking it back to my roots. When I was like 17, I had a graffiti clothing hip hop t-shirt line. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be bringing it back to hip hop, continuing to use a lot of natural fibers. This collection, the colors were a little bit softer, and my aesthetic is known for bright colors, so I'd like to bring back the bright colors for next year.
And how do the elements in nature inform the work that you do in your designs?
It does a lot. The nature, the environment, the impact that my clothing will have on the environment. Also, I take into account, I like to use a lot of recycled leathers, recycled furs, vintage furs when I can. This actually came from an old vintage jacket. So when I can repurpose furs, I will. I think it's important to do that. So I'm just going to keep on creating, and just really excited for and feel blessed that I'm able to do what I love.
And do you also seek guidance from the elders in your community, and what direction do they want you to go in?
They don't really put me in any sort of direction. They express that they're proud of me, and probably the greatest compliment I've gotten in life was from one of my favorite Casca elders, Maida Donesi, and I showed her one of my pieces. It was probably about 300 hours into this dress, and she said, "Oh, child, you have so much patience."
Yeah.
So that means a lot. I think patience can help everybody in life, and you do need to have patience in fashion. So it was a good compliment.
Before we go, tell us who your mentor is.
I have many mentors. Probably fashion-wise, off the top of my head, would be Virgil Ortiz, and he's down in the Southwest. He designed for Donna Caron, and he's a native fashion designer. So I look up to him, and he guides me. He gives me advice here and there. But my family, the elders, and I pray a lot about my work, and I think that shines through with my clothing as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
Sho Sho Esquiro on Access TV, an award-winning artist. Look out for her and her designs.
If you like Sho Sho's design, you can commission her to dress you. For more information on her beautiful clothing and upcoming show, go to shoshoesquiro.com.
Woke up this morning and I knew that there was nothing.
and tumbling with Wallace Canis. And also Guy Estes. And you are Nuchalnath and Squamish, and we have the hereditary chief Bo Dick, who is Kwakwaka'wakw. And I'm Narges O'Sullivan, your host for Access TV. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Narges. Great to be back.
It is awesome to have you here again. Now, today we're going to be talking about the winter edition of the British Columbia magazine, their issue on potlatches. Plus, we'll also talk about the up-and-coming exhibition that's going to be happening at the Bill Reid Gallery, A Box of Treasures. And then we'll be talking about like some masks and other artists, and I'm thrilled. Where should we start?
Well, thanks. You mentioned the British Columbia magazine, and we're really happy. Larry Pinn and Boomer did a great job on explaining for an introduction about potlatching. The article is called The Power of Potlatching, or The Power of the Potlatch, and it's focused on a potlatch that my family hosted a couple of years ago in Alert Bay. There's some great shots in there, but the text is really great, and I urge everybody to go out and get a copy and check it out.
Well, I know very little about potlatches, but I do know it's a part of our governing system. It's where we give names, where we get married, or at least where we used to get married, but we still hold memorial potlatches to this day. Can you tell us how art and carving factors into the ceremony itself?
Well, that's a pretty broad topic. We could be sitting here all afternoon discussing that.
Like the olden days.
Yeah. Now, there is an up-and-coming exhibition, as you mentioned, at the Bill Reid Gallery, opening on the 25th of February, featuring ceremonial art. And it was created by my bro here, Guy Eustace, and a number of other helpers, Wayne Alford, Sean Carps, and there's some younger guys there too, EJ and Corey LaRock, currently known as No Kudzi, and we had Alan Hunt was a big part of that as well, and a lot of other artists, because Narges, when we're preparing the potlatch, what usually happens is the artists get together prior to the potlatch to furnish the chief with necessary masks and other forms of regalia that need to be created for the event. So it could happen just weeks prior to the potlatch, or even months in preparation, getting masks ready. So the masks that are going to be shown at the Bill Reid Gallery, a number of them were created for Chief Wabi Joe and his undersea kingdom that belongs to his tribe and his family will be exhibited, as well as the Tla'akum masks, which were burnt in the ceremony, and we talked about this before. Again, the article that's in the British Columbia magazine will have an explanation to that, and again, we're replenishing it, we're carrying on, recycled our masks now, we've recreated them, and we're ready to show them again. So in leading up to the event on the 25th, we're going to also be involved in a feast at the Tsleil-Waututh Nations facility at what used to be known as the Burrard Reserve, and having a feast there to kick off the celebration of that show, and again to pay homage and honor the late Chief Dan George as well. So it should be a really incredible event, and really look forward to this month. It should be really exciting.
Yeah, so February 25th, look out for a treasure box, gifts from our supernatural, and keep your ears and eyes open for the big feast that will be happening on the Tsleil-Waututh Reserve. And we only got like a couple of minutes here. What about another song? and Guy Estes. Thank you for joining us.
Nobody saw it coming. Nobody had a chance. Everybody started running. She asked me for a dance, and she asked me for a dance. So what you gonna do now? Your children know you're wrong. Been watching your TV. They'll have to sing along. Now they'll have to sing along.
I'm a guy does the faces.
Oh.
And I
Can you stand right and talk about it?
Pardon me?
Can you stand on the camera and talk about it?
Sure.
Yeah, stand right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, put.
Yeah, we had.
Hang on. Tell me what's your name?
David Mercer. We've had three painters here. One's the artist, John, and Jessam. Jessam does majority of the faces, and I do the background colors and most of the touch-ups and so on. We were going to spend more time doing it, but we ran out of time, unfortunately. But it was a huge project. Took us close to 4 months to get it done because it started off as a volunteer project, and got to the end where we couldn't get any more people to help, but we got her done. Just remember Day morning, got her done. So yeah, so we had to put 4 coats on the top because it was painted numerous times before, so things were bleeding through. So it still looks good up top, and we had it laminated the day after Members Day too. So if anybody tags it, we can just wipe it off. So it's we don't worry about if someone puts a tag on it, just wipe it off and it's good as new again. So yeah, but we wanted to do some more detail and do some more things on the tree and everything else. Do some more native work and so on. We just ran out of time. So other than that, it's something that we worked hard at doing, but we just wish we had an extra month. And the winter hit, so paint doesn't dry that quick. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
What about the images? Where did you get the images? Like, who came up with these ideas on all these images?
Well, these are actual. A portion of these people are actual people that were in the war. Jerry Flowers and a couple of ones in the corner here are actual people from the Legion, and these are historical icons and so on. And these people here are actual real people. There's quite a few that are members of the Legion. And the scribes on the bottom are a rugby team from upstairs, the Legion that rent out the hall on a regular basis. Those are actual regular people. They're all photographs from the Legion or rugby and so on. And everyone here basically is part of the club. Yeah. Yeah. So it's and yes, I'm the guy that's does phenomenal work with the faces and so on. We want to do quite a bit more, but unfortunately, the timing, it started getting cold and started getting wet, and the paint doesn't dry that fast. But we're quite proud of it, and we're happy that how it turned out. We got quite a few positive remarks from people, and that's my initials on the bottom of the tree there. It's DM, David Mercer, and yeah. Hopefully it'll last us for a number of years and won't have to fix it up more than we need to. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this mural. Thank you. Thanks, bud. Yeah.
Here's Narges O'Sullivan, Wendy Peterson, and Comby discussing the racial profiling that's happening still.
Hello, my name is Wendy Peterson, and this is Hot Topics on Access TV, shamelessly promoting our friends and community. I'm here in the studio with Narges O'Sullivan, who's a radio broadcaster and story producer for Access TV, and also with Kombi Nanjala, who's with the Africa Great Lakes, an organization that supports the Black community in Vancouver. And we're going to talk about a hot and serious topic in the downtown east side, racial profiling. So Ganarji, can you tell us about a shooting that happened recently?
Yes, many of you may remember the breaking news story about Navarone Christian Landon Woods, who was shot by transit police in Surrey at the SkyTrain. Now, the thing that the mainstream media failed to tell us is that Navarone was picked up previous to the shooting on December the 28th. On the 27th, he was picked up earlier in the day by the ambulance driver for being unconscious, taken to the Surrey hospital and released, and then again he went back again at 11 o'clock and was released on the 28th at 5:15. 2 hours and 45 minutes later, he was killed by the Surrey Transit Police.
So as a parent of a Caucasian young adult, I don't think my son would have been released from the hospital. So do you think, are First Nations worried about this issue? Do they think that there's a connection to racism?
Well, they racially profile our people on many levels. You can see here it's evident that the Surrey Hospital released Navarone when he should have been treated. He was unconscious when he went there. You know, that's a serious issue. He should have been treated before he was released. But quite often our people go into the hospital and leave because of the systemic racism that we face on every level, right? From the hospital to the BC transit system. The police are constantly brutalizing our people in the downtown east side for crossing the street, for jaywalking, for having a dime bag in their pocket. You know, Bingo Dawson was beaten by the police and later met his own death.
So, Kombi, you're working on an event related to racial profiling in the downtown east side. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, on 17th of this month, it's a Saturday, we are having a celebration on Martin Luther King Day, and it will be at downtown east side. And what we are going to do is we're going to focus on a few things during that. It's an open forum, and we are going to focus on what you just said. It's about the police brutality that happens to Black people as well as First Nation. So this is exactly what we are going to talk about. And then we're also going to talk about racism as white supremacy. We're going to talk about political evolution. We're also going to talk about corporate racism, and then Hogan's Alley. Hogan's Alley was a place for Black people which was taken away from us, so we want to talk about that too. And really, it's all connected. It goes back to racism. It goes back to how do the police look at a white, how do a policeman look at a Black person and First Nation. You carry the young man carrying a handbag, it's a problem. The way he's walking is a problem. The way he's, so how do we correct this?
Kombi, tell us about Rodney Watson, because he's at the First United Church, too, just quickly.
Yeah, thank you. This is the reason why we are taking this to the United Church. Rodney has been at the church for the last 5 years, and that is why we want to go and share with him. He's a war resistor, and we want to hear from him what is it that he's really facing, and it all goes back to racism.
And he's living in sanctuary there. He can't leave without being apprehended.
He cannot leave. He cannot go out of that door. He's a Black young man.
I can't wait to hear his story, and I hope that Access TV can cover this issue during the Black History Month in February.
Yes,
so there's 2 more events coming up in the downtown east side. Before we go, we wanted to tell you about them. One is this big fundraiser that's happening for the Carnegie Newsletter. You may know of the Carnegie Newsletter.
Yes.
It covers a lot of social justice issues in the downtown east side. It's totally produced by volunteers and distributed by volunteers. volunteers, but they need to cover the cost of the printing. So there's a big event happening at the St. James Community Hall on Saturday, January 24th. So I hope people can go, and if not, make a donation. And also, Gunnar, do you want to tell us about another event?
Yeah. But before I do, I'm going to follow up with the Woods family to see if they are going to take legal action against the Surrey Hospital and the transit police. You know, Navarone was only 23 years old. The other question I want to leave the listeners and the audience with is, why didn't the transit police use a taser gun or pepper spray? Why shoot the man dead when he was at risk himself? He was, you know, hurting himself. And why didn't mainstream media inform the public that he was in fact taken to the hospital 2 times previous before he was shot by transit police?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, these are important factors. You know, the other thing is that we have the Memorial March for the women that's coming up on February the 14th. And there they are going to be raising awareness about the missing and murdered women who are Aboriginal. There are up to like 1,000 plus First Nations women across Canada who've gone missing. You can check that out on Carnegie, at the Carnegie Centre, again on Main and Hastings.
On February 14th.
February 14th,
yeah,
2015.
And I think they leave it about noon.
Noonish.
Yeah, the march.
Yeah, but you know, they're probably on Indian time.
Yeah. So, well, I'd like to say that it's been a pleasure to have you here for Downtown Eastside Hot Topics, Kombi Nanjala and Ganarji O'Sullivan, and we'll see everybody for Downtown Eastside Hot Topics next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to those 3 women bringing up those hot topics. That shooting that happened in Safeway in Surrey on King George Highway is a disgrace, and we can do better than that, Canada. Well, it's Black History Month in February, and Kombi Nanjala, who you just saw, she is organizing on Facebook under the name of Maziwa, which translates into Africa Great Lakes, or milk. She's organizing food, dance, drums, and fashion, and she's bringing it all to people in the downtown east side on a weekly basis, so you can find Maziwa group on Facebook and get involved.
Also, on another positive note, Janie Chang, a local writer, is nominated for a prestigious BC Book Award for her novel called 3 Souls, thanks to the Writers' Studio, a part of continuing study at SFU. Also, the Carnegie newsletter is still collecting donations.
It has been going since 1986, that newsletter. Twice a month they put it out, so they need to cover the costs. And it's a great newsletter. You can go to carnegienewsletter.com and donate and make a contribution, because they really put out poetry, culture, and perspective from volunteers and actual residents of the downtown east side, and it's a very great publication. Well, it's been a good show. Next show is going to be a little different on Access TV. We're going to have a roundtable discussion on land use, entitlement, and where do we go from here since the Chilcotin decisions come down. So Access TV, thanks you all for watching, and we invite you to give us your perspective. So get in touch with us, because we're accessible.
Thank you. I'm Narges Mawalee for Access TV.
And I'm Molly Caron.